Hey, what's up YouTube? Today I'm going to show you guys how to degree a camshaft. I have a small block Chevy here that I'm building. It's a 350 Vortec L31. It's out of the 96 to 2000 Chevy trucks. It comes with a factory hydraulic roller cam. It's a one-piece rear main seal block. This one is only a 2-bolt main. It should be fine for the power levels that I'm building it for. I have the camshaft in, all the pistons and rods, the crank, the oil pump's on, my windage tray's put on here. A lot of stuff's already done. So now it's time to degree the camshaft. This is a degree wheel, okay? I have a piece of welding rod, or welding filler wire for TIG welding that I bolted on with a 9/16 bolt in one of these water pump holes. Now, how you want to do this, I first need to grab my dial indicator. Okay, so now I have my dial indicator here. We're going to go ahead and set it up, and what we're going to do is we're going to find true top dead center. You might think that your piston's at top dead center, but it needs to be exact. And we're going to set this wire to the 0 on this degree wheel when it's at top dead center. So, first, you take your dial indicator and you set it up here for number 1. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and get it close to top dead center. Pretty close. So, you actually have something called Piston Rock. If you can look. See that piston rocking back and forth. That's why you need to set this dial indicator up in the center of your piston. It doesn't matter back and forth. Just center this way mainly. Your piston's not going to rock this way. It's going to rock back and forth this way. So set your dial indicator up in the center of your piston. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to turn this over until we see the piston just stop moving up. I went past. Go back. It looks like it's stopping right past there. So according to my dial indicator, the piston is at top dead center. So if you look, this isn't directly on the 0. We want to go ahead and bend this so it's set at the 0. Now it's also very important that every time you check this, you need to look from the exact same angle, because your perspective can change things. If I need to look at this dead on like this. If I'm looking at it from this way, it's a degree off. It's 2 degrees off. So you need to look at it dead on every time, the exact same way, from the same perspective, basically from the same perspective each time, because if not, it can move it and it can make it look a little off. So now we're going to make sure that this is actual top dead center. So now we're going to 0 this out. Now it's zeroed out on this and the dial indicator both. So what we're going to do is we're going to go 50 thousandths in both directions. We're going to go backwards first, which is counterclockwise. Most engines spin clockwise on their crankshaft if you're looking at the front of them. If this is a small block Chevy, it does. We're going to go backwards past 50 thousandths, and then we're going to go back to it. You want to check everything in the normal crankshaft rotation, which is clockwise. So we're going to stop right at 50 thousandths. Okay, now we stopped right at 50 thousandths. We're going to see how many degrees away from 0 we are. We're going to look at the same angle, so we are 12 degrees away from the 0. Now we're going to go back the normal rotate, or we're going to go back clockwise in the normal rotation. back to 50,000, back to 0, then back to 50 thousandths. Nope, I went a little too far. If you go too far, back it up at least 20, 30 thousandths to get the slop out of your chain, and then go back again. Sometimes it's hard to stop right on like you're supposed to. Okay, right there's 50 thousandths. So if I look, I'm at 12 degrees that way. So what that actually means is that I guessed right on this. Basically, you check both ways at 50 thousandths, and if you got 8 over here and you got 16 over here, that means that you need to move 4 degrees that way. Both numbers need to be even on each side of 0. Since we got 12 on both sides, that means that we were right on top dead center. So now we've established top dead center, true top dead center. We're going to take and set our indicator up on our intake lifter. I have an exhaust and an intake lifter set up in here with the retainer just so they don't spin and mark my camshaft up. Now we're going to set our indicator up again, but on the intake lifter. Okay. Sometimes it's tricky to get it set right on there. Luckily, I had this set up just right to do so. So we're going to set it up on there, and you're going to let it go in some. You want it pressed down some. I'll go like 20 thousandths down. I know that my camshaft should be around 500 thousandths lift. So this indicator goes about 100 thousandths. So you also want it pretty straight up and down with the lifter. You don't want it leaned over in any way because you'll get a false reading. Now we need to make sure that we're on our base circle of our cam. That means that the valve isn't lifted any, which I think we are, so I'm going to go ahead and zero this out. Okay, now I have this zeroed out. It should be on the base circle. That means that it's not lifted any. This is my cam card that tells you all the specs of my cam. It is the gross valve lift. It's 495 thousandths in the intake, 502 in the exhaust. The duration at 6 thousandths. It's 270, 276. This is your valve opening and closing points at 6 thousandths. It should be installed on a 106 intake center line. We're going to check that to make sure that it's not retarded or advanced. And then you got your duration at 50 thousandths. You got your lobe lift, which is what we're actually checking because your valve lift is at your valve. Your lobe is at your lifter. And then you got your lobe separation. The first thing that we're going to check here is our lift. So on this cam card, you look at your lobe lift. I should have 330 thousandths lobe lift on my intake. So we're going to lift the intake. Okay, now it's starting. There's 100 thousandths, 200, 300. We got a little over 328 thousandths, which is close enough. Now, we're going to spin it all the way back around again. Get back on the base circle. Still a 0. Now, You can do, now basically I'm going to show you how to do the intake. You can do the exact same thing for the exhaust. This is to check your cam specs and to make sure that it's installed properly, that it's not advanced or retarded. If you advance your timing, you're going to get more low end power and you're going to take away from your top end power. If you retard your timing, which means setting your cam back in relation to the crankshaft, you're going to get more top end power and lose bottom end power. With advancing it, you normally take away your piston to valve clearance, so you got to watch doing it. I want this installed straight up. That means it's not advanced or retarded. So it should be on a 106 center line. It's cold out here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to find the max lift on our intake again. So we're going to turn this indicator so it goes all the way around back to the max lift. Okay, so it's just right over 328. And remember, you want to check everything the normal crankshaft rotation. Normal crankshaft rotation, which is clockwise. So we're going to go right up over 328. Right there. Now we're at max lift. We're going to find the center line. You're going to go backwards. You're going to go past 50 thousandths, at least by 20 or 30 to get the slop out of your chain. You're going to go back. Normal crankshaft rotation. You're going to go back 250. Now we're on 50 thousandths. We are at 62 degrees. Okay. Now we're going to go back the normal way, back to max lift. And then we're going to keep going to 50 thousandths. You don't have to go past this time because we're going the normal crankshaft rotation. We're actually going clockwise. Now we're at 50. We are at 147. So we're going to take 62 plus 147, equal that out, divide it by 2. We are installed at 104.5. So instead of this being at 106 like it should be, right there, being straight up, that means it's a degree and a half advanced, which is not very far. I'm going to live with that, but that's basically how to check and see. Now, if you could get an adjustable timing gear, you could adjust that and set it wherever you want. But you need to be careful when doing that and check your piston to valve clearance. You need to do that anyways. So now we're going to check some other things. I'm going to show you how to check your duration. We're going to go back to where the valve isn't open anymore. And we're back on our base circle. Now we're back on our base circle. We're going to zero it out again. We're going to check our duration at 50 thousandths. So what that means, going in normal crankshaft rotation, we're on our base circle. Now you're going to go around clockwise until your indicator goes to 50 thousandths. Starting to go up. Okay, now we're at 50 thousandths. So you're going to note, and sometimes just to make a mental note, especially checking your duration. So we're at 50 thousandths lift. We are at about we're at about 3.5. So I'm going to make a little line right there just to remember. And we're going to write 3.5. Now, We're going to keep going around till we see it go to max lift. Okay, now it's at max lift. We're going to keep going around. We're going to watch. So now it's at 300 thousandths, 200, 100. We're going to keep going around here till we get to 50 thousandths. We're at 50 thousandths. We made our note here that we was 3.5 degrees this way of 0. Okay, so now if you look, it counts for you. We're at about 214.5. So if you take 214.5 from 0 plus 3.5 going back that way, that's 218 degrees. And this camshaft has 218 degrees of intake duration. So it's right on what it's supposed to be. And you can check your advertised duration. Instead of going to 50 thousandths, you would only go to 6 thousandths to check your advertised duration. So you check it the exact same way, but instead of going to 50, you go to 6. So now we're going to check our opening and closing points. So we'll go back around till we're on our base circle and it hasn't opened yet. We're on our base circle. It hasn't opened yet. Now, if we look here on our intake, the opening point is at 6 thousandths is 29 degrees before top dead center. BTDC. That's before top dead center. So we should be able to go to 6 thousandths. You need to be careful because 6 thousandths ain't much. It'll go quick. Okay, now it's starting to move. We're going to go right to 6. Which is right there. So 29 degrees before top dead center, and it's at 28. So that's pretty close. It's within a degree. Now we're going to check our valve closing point. Our closing point on our intake is 61 degrees after bottom dead center. So it's just starting to open. We'll keep going around. It's at max lift. 300. We're going to have to count down backwards, just like we did for the others. 200, 100, 50. Now we're going to have to stop right at 6 thousandths. There's 7. There's 6 thousandths. So 61 degrees after bottom dead center. Right there. There's your 60. Look, bottom dead center. So it's turned around this way. After bottom dead center, because it's moving that direction, it's at 61 degrees. So that's right. So we've went over our duration at 50, our lobe lift, and our intake opening and closing points. And basically I've said that you check your duration, your advertised duration, which they check at 6 thousandths, comp cams do, the same way that we checked it before, but we checked it at 50. You would check it at 6 thousandths. Now we got one more thing, our lobe separation angle. So basically what that means is I'm going to go back around again and go to max lift. Okay, so now we're at 104.5, just because we already know that that's our intake center line. So now you're going to go back around again you're going to stop right there and you're going to take your indicator and put it on your exhaust lifter. And then you're going to go back around again and find the center line on it. You're going to check the difference between them. And then count how many degrees of crankshaft rotation that is. That's going to give you your lobe separation angle. That's basically, you take both your center lines and mark them on here. And then whatever's between them is your lobe separation angle. I'm not going to do that just because I don't feel like setting up for the exhaust. You want to check your exhaust specs on your camshaft. You do the exact same thing, but you put this dial indicator on your exhaust lifter instead of your intake. Anyways, that's how I degree a camshaft. I appreciate you guys watching this. I'm going to have another video coming out where we're going to start putting this thing the rest of the way together. I need to put my timing chain cover on, my oil pan, and then we can put the heads on and start checking piston to valve clearance. We can check our rocker arm geometry and find out what length push rods we need. And I will show you guys how to check your piston to deck clearance. That's really important for quench. Quench does a lot of things. It cuts down on detonation, and it does a lot of things, but we'll go through that in the next video. I appreciate you guys watching this. Please like, subscribe, do all that good stuff. I have a lot more stuff coming out. I just picked a 96 C28 up. I was going to building this for a truck, but now I'm thinking about taking the LT1 out of that and throwing this in here. This should be around 400 horsepower. The LT1's only about 300. Their heads aren't as good as the Vortec heads that I'm putting on here, so I should be able to get a lot more power out of this. Later on I might LS swap the thing and put turbos on it and whatever, but that's down the road. Right now we just might throw this in here. Anyways, I appreciate you guys watching. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff. It really helps me out, help me grow. We can do a lot bigger and better things, and I can teach you guys a lot more. I appreciate you guys watching. Have a good one.